Magical School of Warlockery, Arlo P. It was in the March of 2009 that I boarded that plane ride from Lumbia Airport to Manila to start my schooling in the Magical School of Warlockery. It was a sunny day and it only took an hour and a half, the flight. I landed in NAIA alone. It was still MIA at the time. Manila International Airport. I had a cell phone that was a Nokia, and like magic, there was my grandfather in the waiting area expecting me. He drove a chrome bronze Honda and had the habit of setting the brake with a 20 distance from the car ahead. I arrive at the Zobel house. I haven't been there since I was 6 years old, playing Super Mario and Diablo I in the internet cafe under the mango tree. I sprawled on the bottom of the double-decker, and I opened my new laptop. It was a compact HP, and it had a metal touchpad. I take a couple of pictures from its webcam. I look like a sea dweller. I opened the CDs my friend Ken lent me. They were Anime CDs Tokyo Imagine and Tora Majitsu no Index. The blue color of the latter's Tokyo skies matched the Manila summer too well, the asphalt steaming from the machine city. There was nothing else I focused on that summer except for those anime CDs. A couple of hours later, I meet my older cousin for the first time in so many years. I gotta say, to not mention the puppy would diminish the whole point of the story. I knew that he was a savage, rude, and violent, but I was wearing the brain of a toddler at the time. Everything flew past me, and I moved like a ghost that swallowed all the innocence in the world. I closed my eyes that night, taking in the smallness and largeness of the room. My cousin was in a band at the time, so he was out the whole night. It was almost as a square room, but it was a rectangle. It overlooked the best section of the Adamson outside eateries. At night, you can hear the best background noise in the world. The manly drill vibrations of the national delivery trucks. It shook. The whole two-floor house shook every time one passed by, and one passed by every 20 minutes. It wasn't a train. They were trucks shaking the house. The soft filter of the midnight mow swam through the room like a slow-motion war clip. The dust floated carrying with it the scent of the oldest city in the Philippines. There was no changing it. That smell was as permanent as day. To clean the canals would be something of a fantasy, like ridding a mountain field of plants. Plop goes a tiny dust bunny particle on the wooden window ledge. I watched the moonlight dance on the window gap, while the old shopkeepers downstairs talked about forgettable things. It was a lively street, but at the time, no one bothered me. It was my first night, and I slept easily. I woke up eating vegetarian ham that was packed for me as a booster pack for the unfamiliar and courageous quest. I ate alone. I watched anime once again, and a couple of hours passed. The late morning sunlight beamed to the room like a laser. It heated up all the dust particles and created a fog of crispy musk. The phone rang. It wasn't a living room phone. It was a Skype landline phone. It was my Uncle Dan. At the time, he was as elusive a figure in my life as a 39-year-old young yuppie boss. His voice screamed at me like my parents were about to die. I've never met the guy at the time. "Where's your Auntie Jenny?" he asked. I call her and they talked. A couple of hours later, my grandfather was found on the street floor, knocked out. He had a stroke, they said. He was brought to the hospital, and the next I saw him was in a casket. A few days later, my sister arrives. She was here before me. She started first-year high school in the Mountain Wizard School. We sing a couple of songs, and that's when I sparked the attention of my younger cousin. White as snow, like a polar bear in Central Station. I was attracted to him. He bites. When we were kids, he would bite me. He didn't bite me as a 16-year-old. But when I transferred to the other room, he searched at my laptop and our eyes met. That's when my auntie went in the room with two of us in there. I guess she didn't like when we were that physically close. As a one-time dick encounter, I didn't think of the possibility as something probable. But harboring a sexually charged teenager in Metro Manila with my cousin would have cemented an Elizabethan arrangement so early in the college business game at the time. I make some macaroni salad. It was one of the most economical meals to make for me at the time. Mayonnaise and pre-cooked macaroni. There was nothing else on it but salt and the vegetarian ham, maybe tidbits of pineapple sometimes. But it was right in the budget for me, I lie down on the bottom bunker this time, reviewing my MP3 songs. My older cousin comes in. He sleeps like a log the whole day. There was a snoring guy next to me, and I just stare at the ceiling. As June approached, the rains arrive. When you compare the rain in downtown North Mindanao and the rain in Mandaluyong, it falls differently. The fog is thick, and many more people sleep than people sleeping in here. Because these town folk don't really sleep in the rain more so than they do in the sun. It's a lot more relaxed and secure in here than slacking in the capital. It's a lot more guarded, too. The speed of the country language variant comes out like a sword. It rained and rained and rained, but it didn't flood yet. I came out of the house to the school like a watermelon seed. Since I was carrying what I would be using for semester, I took a taxi to unload my things in the dormitory. I couldn't carry the duffel bag in the train. It was not a possible thing for me. I looked back at the summer in the house. I watched the people go by that marble steel mausoleum. It was in slow motion. My cousin talked to his friends like he didn't do that for 10 years. I watched my Aunt Doris grab us to buy the snacks of the wake. My cousin Trixie was still a with-bangs flayed hair fettifairy at the time. The priest gave one last goodbye, the choice that we don't bring our physical belongings in heaven. My aunt said she liked the goddamn speech. My uncle Noldo put a fishbone in his uvula to check my practical skills for the damn school. I removed the damn thing, laughing our asses off with a white cousin with chopsticks. Don't be an internal medicine. Doctor, he told me. He repeated it thrice. I look at the coagulated Nestia powder. As I pour a cold one with the condominium cloud backdrops on the rusted metal window bars of the tin-roof laundry drying house. It was a motherfucking Tokyo experience for sure. It was like a dream. It went from sunny to rainy in a snap, and then musty sunny. I rode that train like a bewildered Ralts. My mom was with me in the sign-ups. I was the first one in the dormitory. 309, that was my room. The third fucking floor facing the girls. Below us were the giants qualified for the brawl ball players. I couldn't buy books at the time. I would have bought a J.K. Rowling for sure, but all those were loaned out from the valedictorian and the National Student Ant. I don't care much about a motherfucking J.K. Rowling book right now. Who has time for all these women? So I didn't do anything in the room, not knowing what to fucking expect. I didn't know this lull would be the very thing that the developers have leached to the bone right now. It was a time. Knockers. Knock. Hi, he said. But he wasn't fucking alone. Just tailing behind him as a motherfucking 6'2" Jeff Goldblum-like Tarbosaurus. I later learned he was a magical facade lacing student. The tall one, and the guy I would cry over for the rest of my life, was my course mate, the healing arts. I didn't get to hack the damn thing until 2 decades later, at the ripe age of 36 years old. Hello, I said. He said hi. Where do you hail from? He said in the cursing language. Down south, I said. But he didn't mark the dangers of the damn variant. I was as clueless as a cucumber in the academy. This was the capital island, the northernmost. We were the south, the stark opposite, the counter, the antithesis, the supposed convenient enemy. But I didn't know any of these concepts at that age. Maybe that's what it is. But it's not. Otherwise, I would speak in Ilocano or Ilongo. Hi. We were still saying hi at this point. What's your block? I say XX first. He said XX second. I looked it up and XX third is nowhere to be found, conveniently in the archives. The grudge is still boiling. It's still piping hot. It will be piping hot, or I'll have nothing to do. The most dangerous enemy in the world is the one you do not recognize. Tess Gerritsen, author of The Sinner and Vanish. So, how old are you? I was born on March 26th in your year. He said he was born on October 10th. I was older than him by a lot of months. It was our first night, but there was a fourth guy. He arrived 6 hours later at 3 in the afternoon. Hi, he said, his fucking straight-ass teeth all 2 rows beamed like a strobe light in a cave. His lilac lips plastered on his cream 6-feet skin propped up the billboard ad with the text C-O-N-O on it in bulb lights. It was a motherfucking Kono. There was no hiding any of it. As clear as glass, he walked, talked, and breathed Kono. Looking back at it now, as I'm paired with October 10th. He was paired with the magic design guy. That must have been the reason why he transferred. It has to be. It motherfucking has to be. All four of us slept peacefully that night. Well, except for the fourth guy. He slept for 2 hours after the first day party. I woke up 3 days later, not speaking to any of them, eating the cafeteria food on rainy days. It was mostly clear chicken soup with mirliton leaves and raw papaya. I caught the pig flu. There was an outbreak in the country, they said. They plastered that on my forehead. I had the swines. I was transferred to the first floor guest room. I ate the soft garlic rice from my mom's former classmates, on the same motherfucking school, might I add. She also went here, the magical school of Warlockery. I was sick as a log. I couldn't taste anything. I could barely lift my chemical eye textbook. I recovered in time for the orientation. It was in the open, covered court. We were herded like cows, but it was one of the most magical gatherings the world has ever witnessed. It was the biggest gathering of the country's top-tier water monkeys. But 70% of us disappeared into street manna. Something I think about doing still, followed by the is that beneficial for the receiving party line, coupled with the surviving, magic-using rogue parentals. I sat on the floor, along with all 2,936 of us, 3,000 warlocks. That's the number of people who watched Michael McIntyre and Ollie Wong make ancient Jesus bank. Everyone smelled like spork food. Those crude machine boxes should fetch a really good price for nostalgics right now. Purple fuchsia like condoms. I met the damn section that day. I talked to Ravilla first with photograph and the world's worst deliberately shy hello, like a motherfucking Potterhead. He's biased to death at the get-go. He's planned this whole damn bonanza. But I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know these people were stalkers, like a ralts in a field. The second person was Elisa, the condo witch. She brought her doings in any high rise she went, but she went from the healing arts to claimer after 3 weeks in the course, and she grabbed my region mate at the doing. 2 claimers that decided to switch after scoping their course mates. There were 2 more transferees, Jam who went to coin magic, and Sheena who went to electric mats magic, but later back in the healing arts after 3 years of that. And then the first to leave the section was Yelena. She went to the fucking West Hemisphere, coldest region for condensed ale magic distribution. We walked the campus those 3 days. Our supervisors marked themselves as superior by calling out glutathione and walking time from birches to bells. That was when I first laid my eyes on the swimming captain. Nothing happened. It's just I didn't know he would be 2 centuries older than me at the time. I looked at that statistic solution and I knew I was rank locked. There was no moving up. It was cemented in platinum like a planet. It's like daring a toddler to compute for the sum of 3 cube whole numbers. And the most unforgettable problem, computing for the area of that hypothetical tumor. How each one of us saw infinity is something I chew on still. A nail cutter? She said. I think we're housed with a simpleton. But somebody quipped it to be born, but it wasn't a romantic tag. It was something someone who clings to diligence wakes up to. What a strike. Huh? Diligence milker. That's some insecurity. But I farmed those B marks. I summoned them like snow cabbages. But I didn't know this was a fixed grade. It was like recognizing a 2 head from a 1 to a 3, and then to the hydras. And they were all here. They put them in this school. There was no chimera about it. They were hydras. The first class was chemistry. It was at 7:30 in the morning. You could tell which ones were morning people. And the dormers all slept late. Only a couple of dozen tiptoed around like elves. I came back in the room carrying that class. The instructor was a mountain dweller. But after reviewing the chemical acid counter reagents with my roommate, Henrietta Lax, I knew this guy would attack me in the most shallow way possible. It wasn't a direct attack. It wasn't a punch in the gut or a slap in the face. He would come in and say, "No, that's not the chemical for that." And he stole the damn show. He's still stealing it. I met his time-traveled self 3 years later in a physics lab class. My fucking memory is incomplete. Even in the languages I spoke, there are spaces missing that appear like leprechauns. I got an 84 in that first test. I saw those 100-plus marks, but I treaded on. I trod like boots on a river. The second test was an even worse mark. The third was lower than the first, but I got a beyond chemical eye. It was in that classroom that my best methane air-conditioned chill memories live. I come in that classroom like a comic. I look at these mountain dwellers, and I read them hard, like I'm meeting them in church. But it wasn't the Hydras that declared their grades. No, the Hydras flew on. The brutes had higher grade than me. The next subject was English. I had no section mates here, except for Boris Johnson, now the obese. Oh, and Nigel Feasts. I made sure my essays stood out like red paint. He'll remember me, all right. He'll remember me, not by my average of the time, but by those 5 glowing sentences, as damaging as an expletive. The third subject was physical magic. I woke up at 7 in the morning, not 7:30. It was a 7 a.m. class. Chinese bamboo, flying dragon martial arts. Wushu. I encountered that popular name for the first time, Nelson, and then 30, then Pam and Miko. I was the only one in my section who took that mother-tucking class. And it was with this bunch that I congregated with when the extremely marked typhoon shaved off 20% of the lectures of that semester. I wish I had that movie clip to replay today. What a motherfucking time that would be. National leaders waving sticks. The fourth class was laboratory. Without laboratories, men of science are soldiers without arms. Louis Pasteur, French hero of beer, wine, and silk fermentation. I encountered the concept of a preparatory laboratory report and then the after report. That name has colored the downtown restaurant like crazy. Terrazzo. There's a whole line of this here. The feigning horror vibes family. The fifth class was Filipino. The cursing script. If I spoke Filipino in an American realm, I would die. But I didn't know that at the time. Separating yourself from a country's population was walking the line. This Filipino class was when I was first introduced to deliberately false teaching. But I didn't know this at the time. It was the water of thirst. It was the voices upon waking. It was the retirement home existence. It was watching an old warlock crawling on the floor. One of the quiz questions was, what is the city of man? The answer was Manila. Another question was, what year was the release year of Sister Stella? The answer was 1984. We were a 1992 batch. What kind of psycho would have the time to look up the release date of a film that was released 8 years before his birth? In the vastness of the archives, what kind of high schooler would go back in time to be obsessed by the release year of this film? A 29-year-old, I would understand, but a high schooler to have the time for these films is something only the school's local would recruit. The sixth class was mathematics. It was slopes, parabolas, asymptotes, proving and more proving. Trinomials, the quadratic equation, factorials, and graphing. Lots of graphing. In the end, I miraculously procured the most majestic result I have in my whole existence. AC+ in Warlock Fundamental Mathematics. I came out that semester like a bird in an encampment. Glorious. Absolutely glorious. It was on to the second semester, but first was a semestral break. I had to go back in the Adamson Olden Apartel. It was a mood. October in the Barbecue Central. At night was an experience of a lifetime. The whole house had a dramatic noir filter on it. I could feel the weight of the piano fall on me, like my classmates be great in math. The A grade and the B+. Life is like a piano. What you get out of it depends on how you play it. Tom Lehrer, composer of the Irish Ballad and the Masochism Tango. I watched my white cousin go in and out of his room, and I knew I found myself in a love triangle spat once again at the time. But this time, I couldn't get out of it, and there was a financial catalyst that created skirmishes in front of my eyes. I spent those 2 weeks lying down on my grandfather's bed, watching Quentin Tarantino, and the tourist with the eyes of a fish. I cooked fried rice so differently. The rice is vastly different. The garlic sticks to it like an egg chow fan. I hopped on that 17-minute train and tricycle ride. I showed my ID and I was back in like a motherfucking alien in a line composed mainly of robots and 5 dozen humans. I went in 309 and I played Sugar Rays When It's Over and Empire of the Sun. It's what I stumbled on. It's what I played. LimeWire only churned out so much, and there was no YouTube recommendations or Spotify list. We pulled these choices from the local torrents. The first subject from the second semester was Introduction to Poetry. Poetry veiled Magic 101. I ate those poems like junk food. I didn't have a grasp of the vastness of communication at the time. There was no eating manna out of convenience orientation on my end. I didn't use text for any financial gain at the time. There was no placing where text lands in the world. It was Sylvia Plath's daddy, Lady Lazarus, and Pablo Neruda's If You Forget Me and Tie Your Heart at Night to Mine, Love. There's not much to say about the darn witch of the subject, except that she's ventured Europe with her music and literature. It was in the second semester that they funneled in Chemicals 2, Filipino 2, Calculus, and Lab 2. I didn't know the quiz cheating would be so memorable. I really didn't. But like Titrate Less or More, it was a poem. Then one of my most favorite classes, Taekwondo. Manfred was as innocent as a daisy at the time. He moved like a 20-year-old bottom. But I didn't know what kind of person he'd become. I asked him his name, like I was a dom top or something, but in true mid-fashion, I simply smiled at him and got through class. The instructor was one of the few hot professors the academy had. The only other two were physical teachers as well, the chemical eye professor, Adamar, and my tennis teacher. Motherfucking trailblazer. What is your problem? A dream line from him, and then a subsequent make-out action. What a life direction that would be. The second semester ran from November to March. 5 months. The thing about this time was there was a Christmas break too, which really left the professors with basically just a mountain year for each of these. What I am in the Christmas dinner. Halloween. Who I said goodnight to. It was in second year when I dug up the Facebook account of my Korean National High School F reason. I wasn't fatalistic still. There was no bunk bed with me in the mountains. He replied, and that's what was peculiar to me now. This guy, had I eaten him, would result in an Actual Principles Office episode. Something your book could use. Calculus is a trip. Of course, I didn't understand an iota out of it. I scoped out who a legitimate smart person was in here, and fucking Haddle came up in my ultra instinct. How did it motherfucking start? How the fuck did the ass play out? Haddle, may I ask a favor? Can I come over your place and be tutored calculus? I don't know why he said yes, but he did. He really did. This select Chinese guy in the Warlock Academy. I followed the instructions in my handheld Nokia. It said Recto Station. I didn't know this station at the time. The train column spanned an ocean floor. The tricycle fare was close to $2 for a flat surface. I walked a little bit. Right fucking next to it was Chinatown, and the smell of roasted duck and thick beef stew blew to the north like a turbine. A couple more Navy Chinese high schools, and this condo should be it. There was a cage dog that barked at the ground floor. For flights of stairs, and knock I go. Hello, house assistant, and suspecting younger brother. We had the air-conditioned room to ourselves. There was a plastic table in the room, and small chairs conducive for studying, and a mini fridge full of sweet tea drinks. 1 and a 2 and a 3 thought processes from him, and I could get away with a passing grade. There was no make-out session. There was no topless situation, no penis peaks, no sex action. One night, we were in the big bedroom. He fell asleep next to me, and he put his midget leg on me, and like an alien, I didn't know it would be a non-escalated situation. What a fucking piece this depressing person is. I witnessed him snore his body up and down. One of the best math wizards in the country, fast asleep next to me. I spent the night in there, and we rode the train together for introduction to the academy culture. The semester ended in the beginning of March, just after the tiny bit remaining of the early year rains, before the sun demonstrates its power on the equator. The Filipino 2 teacher was a girl. I really don't like to write about it, but the winning Tagalog word was RM, my fricking region mate's choice, a dish word. Remember me? It beat out my Asa. I did such a phenomenal job amping it up too, sprawling the thinnest street cafe bowels for this MMORPG word. There was another film assignment. If I have that film in my USB right now, it would be replayed on my YouTube so hard, I would be drinking good. I'm still in awe of that Temari fan. The whole budget vegetarian of it all. Truly no meat bacteria life. I came out that semester ready for the repeat of the Blue Tokyo Cloud condominium fantasy. This was Alvin Yapin's language curse subject. The middle of what I received from the darn South Flair rare language. We watched that cow-umping movie with all the warlocks in the batch invited. How to unsee. A T-slip. Gen Psych with Drake. What a filleting tool. There are no words to describe how this guy lays out a math solution. It's almost condescending how it comes out as something he could have had us hone so early on. It was in Gen Psych where I met the school's dance troupe members. He died a couple of years later from cancer, and the hospital where he died and has his name in its cancer department. What a path that is. He came running to me as I recited the psych questions in the mini hall. Gone. No longer in this world. It's 2010 to 2011. I completed the whole of second year in the academy. 2 years checked off in the country's premier magic school of Warlockery. There's nothing much to say about my second completed year, except it was my first time getting a dick off in 6 years. One of the best experiences of my life, and one of the few who do motherfucking dates. It was this year that we were asked to transfer from the old dormitory to the new university dormitory. The 7th fucking floor. The tiles were white linoleum, so it lit up the room like a cube in the sky. It was a fantasy. You could see the whole town from the room, even the extent where the mountains start. The dead American soldiers' cemetery, and that drummer from the neighboring subdivision. I don't really want to expound on the new dormitory experience, because I keep fucking repeating it in the past books. But it's what I keep replaying when I'm waiting for something. Yeah, I spent about 20 years in a dorm room. It took me a while to graduate. Douglas Wilson, pastor at Christ Church in Moscow, Idaho. Organic chemistry. Something I think about when I'm walking. All the wonders of a brain that can memorize and map out a mathematical solution when making coffee and tomato stew. Western history. A white Lakiliki. He meets up with me while I'm walking. That's always fun. Such a trip. Like a clueless duck, I wrote about how Manuel Quezon III was a fucking dictator. And I presented it like it was a dictionary 1:1. What a fucking novice happenstance that was. I would have viewed it like a painting. A child reading a book he's not mentally present in. Sociology. It was when I heard a high guy's perspective. Didn't hear it since. It's pretty memorable. He got the healing license after the second take. Theology with a grown-up Kono. He said the number one bank in the country was trying to win him back, but he chooses to facilitate something the city is determined to do. Northern region visitation. What a strange experience. To talk to people placed here deliberately for the Konos to invade, talk, and interact like a museum experience. Out like gallery guests. I took blood pressure, manually at the time. That was about it. I wish I was able to look in those eyes and say you're going to need to exercise, because you guys spit me out of this capital where my foreigners proliferated. Not a lot of foreigners in the South. Not those that you can just grab willy-nilly as this. They're given orientations, warnings, and a lot of enchilada. Table tennis. My semester with a U. What a dream that was. Someone who I got tea from. They say he's gay. A girl says. They say he's gay. They say he's gay. Bodybuilding in the country's capital. The urban life. The second semester was German. Guy go smell that subject. His last name's funny for that. Cellular biology. Nothing much to it. Except just a few adjustments, and I could be well in my species' mapping quest. Economics. Fresh out of Christmas flight from home and a Batman tutorial session, I got my sociology building grade. David T. says one of the worst students I taught. She said, "Well, now look what you did. The class is looking at me like I'm an evil villain. It's funny in retrospect. The segue on that must have hit. So good to the advance. Resolves works. It was when I encountered a guy who branded a paper because of the range of authors he'd encountered from his 101 years of life. Statistics, a sunny wind in Mateo Hall, and a Nokia text agreement. Turn the car around. You said you would tutor me. I got the understanding of an expert that first test. The second, all that memory went down with the dormitory's installation of a private Ragnarok server. That garnered me a Chino visit. Back in the room like a psychopath. Management. That was fun. I learned that my professor had a thing for labeling proctologists and gastroenterologists. Lawn tennis with Drake. Borrowed that racket from my roommate, like he was the room of requirement. That summer was biochemistry with who I'm sure was Oyo Boy Sato doing a character. His signature line, I like to go to the gym, work on my biceps and my backhand, and environmental science with Dr. Phil. I start my third year in the academy. It's June of 2011. The year Osama bin Laden was killed by Obama, the premiere of Game of Thrones, and the year of the Japan tsunami video. By the end of the second semester, I packed my bags and threw my hands in the air. This isn't for me. If you're determined not to help me become what I want to be, I'm going to have to help myself. On a gray morning of November, I board my plane, fresh from a spaced-out haircut from Bruno's, and wait for 2 hours inside the darn plane. Could you have been crying for all the things you could have done to help me become a different person chained in Manila? Or did you do just about everything? I look at the text, and I wonder about all the things I think of you. A life in the capital. Strolling along flings and roll-out hookups. Random phone calls. The boss on the laptop. The hub in the metro. A road trip to let off a steam. Meeting you on the sunny paths. Waving like an idiot. It doesn't matter. You've left me with this math solution. There's no way I deserve to be on the top floor comparing these two sheets. You're gone. Gone above so early on. You're well off right up there. To watch you cry would be my pleasure. You could say I'm as I should be, completely different and another body from you. You could say you needed me in the city. You could say you like me because of what I am. You could say you're completely and inevitably in love with me. That there's no other person that could have lived those 3 years. But there is no telling how I wake up to be as far away from your math solution. If I ever have that sheet on my hand, I'd be looking at the design of evil. We will never be the fucking friends you've envisioned us to be. You may look at me like that, but I know where you're looking from. And the day I knock you down from a camp I've been building is a day I will laugh in triumph. Tomato stew and all,